Hello. Much has been made of the prowess of Rachel Reeves, our first female Chancellor. Don't forget that. Her prowess at chess. But is it true? Well, not according to the Daily Star. Actually, according to them, it's about as true as her being an economist for the Bank of England, or the Halifax, or was it the Bank of Scotland? I'm sorry, I can't keep up with the ever-ebbing and flooding tides of her life story. I'm Granniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. So this is in the Daily Star. The page is rather plain because there were so much adverts on the web page that I put it into reader view. British politicians' claims about being chess champion as schoolgirl debunked, it says here. She's at the centre of a chess riddle, it says, after claims she was a British schoolgirl champion were put in check. Somebody's having fun here, aren't they? For years, the politician has revelled in being a real-life porn star, like the main character in telly show The Queen's Gambit, played by actress Anya Taylor-Joy. Rachel told how she had to beat the best boys to battle her way to the top after her dad taught her the game at 7. And biographers trumpeted the fact she was British girls' under-14 champion. But now records have emerged showing she did not win the U14 championship in 1993. She actually finished 26th. Now, being 26th in that championship is pretty bloody good, but it's not the champion. Composer Emily Howard beat her on the way to being crowned the nation's chess princess. One observer of the game said, "So, not a champion. Reeves was beaten by the actual under-14 champion, the composer Emily Howard." So what in fact has happened is that Reeves has not only convinced the world of a lie, but she's also stolen the glory of Emily Howard. Just so you know. Maybe whoever first said she was a champion was thinking of a different tournament, which wouldn't be the officially recognised one. Ask any chess prodigy and they'll tell you that playing in a championship and winning a championship title aren't the same thing. So she's allowed this lie. I don't know whether she said it herself, but she's allowed this lie to persist. Certainly, the BBC made much of her history beating male toxicity to become, there we are, to become the first female chancellor. Never forget that. And talking about her restraint and self-control. You know, she plays serious and determined chess, and so this is part of her persona, they say. They don't say it, but they also seem to be talking about the reasons for the spite she's showing to private schools. Let's have a look down here. Oh, just a minute, I've just seen this, which I didn't see before. She once had an interview for a job at investment bank Goldman Sachs, but turned it down. She said, "I could have been a lot richer." Yeah, and she could have been sacked for lying on her CV as well. The thing about politics is you don't get sacked when you lie. Well, I mean, you used to, but not anymore. But I just want to talk about the cuts that she was talking about. Let's see. Here we are. A keen flute player, She took her music GCSE a year early at Beckenham Cater Park School for Girls, a comprehensive, and would go on to gain 4 A grades at A level. Seeing the extent of cuts at her school, where the library had been turned into a classroom and the sixth form consisted of 2 prefab huts in the playground, she has said she was politicised by her own experience of public services. At the age of 16, she joined the Labour Party. So you see, that obviously had an effect on her, and now she wants to get her own back on the private schools, of which she was obviously so jealous as a child. And I want to play you this little video here, which is, it came up in the Telegraph, but this bit is from the Institute for Fiscal Studies. And here we are. Let's have a look at this.
Around 6% or so of school children in England go to private schools. Their fees have risen very fast over the last couple of decades, at a time, certainly over the last 13 years, where spending per pupil in the state sector has barely risen at all. The result is that there is a much bigger than ever gap between the resources available to pupils in the private sector compared with the...
I just want to point something out here. 6% is a small number. And so anyone with any sense would realise that 6% is not going to get you a lot of extra tax. But the other thing is that these parents are paying huge amounts of money. I mean, this guy said the prices of fees for private schools have gone up very high, very quickly. These parents are, many of them working their fingers to the bone to afford these schools, and then they are taking the strain off the local state schools. So they are paying their taxes, which pays for state schools, and yet they're not accessing these state schools. They are simply paying extra for their children to go to private schools. So, in fact, they're doing the country a favour. But it's obvious that Rachel Reeves doesn't see it like that. We'll just carry on here.
In the private sector compared with those in the state sector. Now, one of the conclusions you might draw from that is that we've had these huge increases in fees over a period of time and literally no reduction in the numbers of young people going to private schools. I think that's one of the main reasons you might reasonably think that if you were to, as the Labour opposition wants to, impose VAT on private school fees, there's no great reason to think that's going to have a big impact on the numbers of people who go into the private sector. Now, it's not going to raise a very large amount of money, 1.5 billion or so. Now, 1.5 billion isn't nothing, but in the context of the overall national budget, in the context of how much we raise from taxes in general, which is more like $1 trillion, this is a tiny, tiny amount of money. So you might want to do this for reasons of social justice or equity, or because you think it's appropriate to charge VAT on private school fees. But don't be fooled into thinking this is going to make any real difference to the amount of money available for public services.
Right, so he's saying it's not going to make any difference. So why do it? Well, it's got to be just spite, hasn't it? Black Belt Barrister made a video in which he told the story of a woman who was faced with a 25-mile trip to take her daughter to the nearest school. And she's in the middle of her GCSEs. I mean, it's not even as if Reeves has said, all right, we'll start this next September to give parents a chance to organise things. No, in the middle of the school year. That can only be spite. And the Black Belt Barrister did say, you know, this mother has to give up her job because she has to drive her daughter to school and bring her back from school, a 50-mile round trip each time. That's 100 miles a day. And this is a government that's supposed to be worrying about the environment. You know, it's supposed to be worrying about children's educational opportunities. No, in neither case is it obvious that the government is worried about environment, and certainly it looks like the government, as Rachel Reeves's take on it is simply to make people who send their children to private schools, to make them squirm. Now, this brings me back to chess. You see, to be good at chess, in my experience, well, not in all cases, but in a lot of them, you have to be, well, a not very nice person. I know there are some chess players who are quite nice about winning, but many of them, in my experience, are just a little bit sadistic. My father taught me to play chess, and again, when I was about 7, I suppose. Anyway, it was sort of funny because when I started to beat him, he stopped playing chess with me. But I did play others. And I know I had a hard time winning. It's an unpleasant feeling. You see, there's something very personal about chess. You're sitting opposite someone. You are having a battle of wits with them. And there's that point where you're obviously going to win, or you're certainly in command of your game. And the other person, they start to sort of squirm. You can see them shifting. They're looking over the board in a sort of slightly panicky way. It depends on the person, of course. And they start to shift in their chair. And I didn't like that feeling much. And I realised that I'd never be really good at chess because what I was doing, I was fine in the opening game and pretty good in the middle game. When I got to the end game, I realised I was actually starting to sabotage my own game because I just didn't like seeing that look in the eyes of my opponent. And I don't mind beating anyone at Trivial Pursuit or Scrabble because I sort of have the feeling that I'm playing myself there. But there's something very, very personal about chess. That was a different matter. And you have to like watching people squirm. I know some chess players just concentrate on winning. That's one thing. But you do see a lot of the vicious types as well. And Rachel Reeves, despite the fact that she lied about just about everything, is probably still a pretty good chess player. The vicious type. Okay, till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.